Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope you are all well. We are moving into Module 10, Musculoskeletal System and Integumentary System. Musculoskeletal is one of my faves, being a chiropractor. So the main thing to start thinking about, you're going to look at these and go, oh my gosh, there's a ton of material. Try to group these things together. For example, inflammatory musculoskeletal conditions. Obviously, there's inflammation in all of them. What makes them all different? So you're going to see lists and lists. Try to group things together as best as you can, and then identify what stands out. For example, osteoarthritis versus rheumatoid arthritis. Rheumatoid arthritis is going to affect all your joints. Osteoarthritis is that bad shoulder that you have because you played softball 20 years ago. So try to pick and choose what's different. And then, of course, not just one thing, but what are all of the differences that make that disease stand out? Skin cancer, I'm going to briefly go over that with you. Know the differences between the skin cancers, but of course they're all cancerous. Know which one is most deadly. Try to pick things out. Always try to think you are writing the exam, and what would you focus in on to make sure that your students know. So we go through musculoskeletal system for the aging as well as infants, because that's where we'll see most issues. Same thing with the integumentary system or the skin. We're going to go through the basics of it and then different pathologies that can happen in the elderly as well as the young. Coming down, we have our overview. Once again, a great way to study and review all those topics and terms, and a really good case study this week. Read through that and give me your opinions. Remember to keep it within the appropriate time frame and follow all of the directions. Looking just quickly, there's a lot of PowerPoints. Once again, don't let it scare you. Try to focus in on the differences. And try to get a good working knowledge of this material. I do feel like a lot of this material is very important for you all. You'll see a lot of these. So this first set of questions is a general overview of the musculoskeletal system. And the reason I brought this question up, and you'll go through the notes and be able to answer this once you review the notes, is try to give yourself ways to remember. When I looked at this is what popped into my mind. I knew it was axial skeleton. I know that's correct. The axial skeleton is much like the axis of the earth. It's the center point of the body, including the skull, the vertebral column, and the thorax. And so I figured the rest of them were incorrect due to that. Now, when I was going through this, the thing that stuck in my mind is out of all the bones of the body, there are 80 in the axial skeleton. I will remember that because 80 and axial sound similar to me for some weird reason. I don't give you guys my mnemonics because a lot of them were like that. I don't know. And then I know there's 206, so I know there's 126 bones in the appendicular skeleton. If there's any way you could get easy ways to remember stuff, try to use it as best as you can. But more importantly, I'll be honest with you, I was uncertain about all those numbers. I'm not good with numbers. I knew A was false. I know there's 260 bones. Numbers just don't stick into my head. Axial skeleton, I figured 126 was wrong. That's just too many for the axial skeleton. And I also figured the skeleton doesn't contribute to 50% of the body weight, but I wasn't totally sure about those numbers. So when you go look at the numbers, try to get silly little ways to help you remember that. Okay, like I said, 80 axial, that's a way for me to remember. When I look at 206, 2 almost looks like it's facing the opposite direction of 6. I don't know. Any way that there's a silly way for you to remember is a good way to remember. Anyway, is a good way to remember. Okay, so basic structure of the bones is in that chapter. 41. 41, get back to the beginning, is alterations of the musculoskeletal function. A lot of breaks and strains and sprains. So this will be an interesting one for you to review as you go through. And you will probably see things like this if you're in general practice quite a bit. So I didn't really see many questions that I wanted to review in this one. I felt like they were all pretty straightforward. But once again, use those questions in the PowerPoints to help you remember things. Chapter 42 is alterations in children. 41, I'm sorry, was in elderly. This is in children. You will absolutely see this if you work in any sort of general practice or ER or urgent care. Buzz through that. Try to memorize those as best as you can. Trying to remember there was something I wanted to talk about in here. Maybe I just wanted to give you a general overall. I just feel like these are important topics to remember. And then there's a couple of chapters on skin. Okay. General structure, function of the skin, hair and nails are all included in that. Buzz through that. And disorders as well. I wanted to briefly go over skin cancer. I feel like that's a really important topic to review. There's 3 main types, and melanoma is the most dangerous one. Okay, so they call it cutaneous melanoma. That's cancers of, freckles that we see on the skin, and they like to metastasize and go to different areas of the body. So you definitely want to take a good look at your patient's skin and send them to, a dermatologist who's well-versed in skincare. If you think there's any issues, the quicker you get to them, the better you will be. Burns is another thing that I wanted to briefly touch on. Know the different degrees of burns, which are the most dangerous, which are the most deadly. Obviously, you can have a lot of issues with burns because of water loss. And know this breakdown. It's called the rule of 9s. There it is there. Total body surface area estimation. And the basic gist of it is, with the worst burns, if they're on a smaller area, there won't be as much as a problem. If you have like a 4th degree burn over a huge amount of the area of the body, you have a lot more water loss. So know that breakdown. I think that's an important thing to take with you. Now, the rest of this I think you can kind of look through on your own. It makes sense. I know there's a lot of it. And last but not least is disorders in children. You're going to absolutely see this. You wanted to go through this. This is probably familiar for many of you. Following a skin infection that is caused by a fungus, and or it's also known as ringworm, the tinnias. I would know all the tinnias in addition to everything else you need to know. I'm just trying to pick out things that I think are clinically important. And I did pull up a little website with the different types of tinea. So capitis was the answer to that question. That's of the head, almost like you're wearing a cap. Okay, once again, try to think of things that'll help you remember. Tinea cruris is jock itch that's in the groin. Pedis, like you have a pedicure, is in the foot. Body, corporal is our body, is a reference to body. And then you can get it under the nails as well. Okay. And once again, not that everything isn't important. Those are just things that I've seen repeatedly from book to book out of all the classes that I teach. Please remember, in week 9, you have your exam. I sent the information in the previous announcement. And of course, as always, if you have questions, let me know. During your exam, keep your eyes on your screen. You're not allowed to use outside sources. And also remember to use a proctoring system. Shoot me an email if you have any questions. I'm happy to help. I hope you're all well and safe. Have a great week.